Oh, welcome. You have
Thank you very much. Thank you. I mean, I'm delighted I've been able to hop over the border, even though it's all blocked up here. Virtually, it's fantastic. I felt like I've left the country.
yeah, we can't go anywhere right now. You're right, it's all blocked up. Soon it'll all be back to normal. We're in the midst of COVID-19, by the way. If you see this on the recording, that's why. We'll remember this as the pandemic of 2020, right? It'll be crazy. So, but today we're here for about Brain Heroes, and you have an amazing, amazing Brain Heroes story, amazing thing that happened to you. So you want to dive in a little bit and say what happened to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to scare off all the viewers with the gory stuff at the beginning. So if you're a horror fan, just hang around to the end and you'll get the real juicy bits. But it's going to sound like it's a TV or movie stunt, but unfortunately, it's real. 2 years ago, my family and I were driving in North Quebec with my dog and my little boy, who was 2 years at that time. And our car was hit by a train on an unmanned crossing, which is a very destructive event. And I think you can count on one hand how many people actually walk away from this. And it changed our lives because actually everything we knew up until that point ended. And my wife and I would spend 10 days in asleep. I like to call it asleep. It's slightly more romantic than what it actually was. But we were on life support for the 10 days. And when we woke up, everything was different because we didn't know who we were, where we were, what we were.
Wow.
And slowly over these last couple of years, and it was in March 2018, so we've just gone through the anniversary. We have basically, with the help of a great medical team and also a sheer amount of bloody mindedness and determination by our part, to put ourselves back together. Now, most people, I suspect, would be happy with just actually getting things back together, but we want to try and do something more than that.
So,
We
Paul, before you go into that, I'd love to hear about when you said you woke up and you didn't what was going on. You didn't at all know what was going on?
No, no, I didn't. I had no idea where I was. I had no idea why I was there, and actually, I had no idea. You get given a label, which is your name, and it means nothing. And because people were calling me by my name, but it was like I wasn't actually in my head anymore because it got so badly damaged that actually felt like it was just floating.
Wow.
And I had that sensation of floating for weeks. It wasn't just, oh, it's an isolated a couple of hours. This was for weeks, day and night. And when I actually realized that things were real is my mother and my father flew across from United Kingdom. You may have spotted I'm English, so there you go. That's a good reason. And they flew across, and I remember putting my hand through the bar on the bed and poking my mum. I said, "Oh, you're real."
Wow.
And so when I then worked out that she was actually real, I then thought, "Oh no, I'm obviously in a very bad place because the the being awake bit was very, very uncomfortable. I'm being typically English there, aren't I? Very uncomfortable. It was beyond any pain I could. It gets to the point where pain is so much that actually your senses can't pick it up anymore. It's like it goes past a certain frequency. And we were, when I say we, my wife and I, she woke up a day before me. And you need your box of tissues now, just give you a quick spoiler. But she woke up a day before me and she asked her nurses if she'd come see me. And I was still asleep. And she came to see me, and then she went back to her bed. And my parents arrived the next day, and they'd been told before they got on the plane from England that when they got there, that to be ready to make the ultimate decision,
Oh, wow.
And they were then, after being told that, 7 hours basically in the air, so completely out of contact. So when they turned up the next morning, the doctor said, no, scrap everything we said yesterday. He's awake. And they said, we don't know what happened last night, but we've got no medical explanation for it. So we're going to have to put that down to just being a miracle.
Wow.
And these are doctors, the medical professional
Nice.
people, and they came up with the phrase miracle. And so yes, it's like being given a second chance. I don't know if you're familiar with Brandon Burchard, but he had an accident when he was a lot younger, and he wrote a book called The Golden Ticket.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of his, and I feel exactly the same, that you got given a golden ticket.
Wow.
And it changes your whole perspective on everything, not just a few things. When people say life-changing injury, I had no clue what that meant. I didn't even know what a TBI was beforehand. A TBI is a traumatic brain injury. I had to go and look that up because I had no idea what that was. And it's kind of like it's the thing that happens to everyone else, but you don't know anyone who actually has it themselves until it's you. And it makes no discrimination. It doesn't care if you're good, bad, tall, short, whatever. It doesn't matter. When it hits, it hits.
Yeah.
And there's no one who's watching who can actually say, well, this won't happen to me, because I thought that too.
Yeah.
Um,
Was your family just as bad, or was there a difference in the injury?
well, to be honest, when one person in a family gets an injury, everyone in the family gets the injury. I am. This is going to sound like I kind of invite trouble, but I have actually. I'm a skin cancer survivor. That's 5 years ago, 5 years clear. So I kind of have a bit of practice at going through trauma. There's obviously a greater purpose, which would have been nice if it had just explained it rather than keep showing me this. People say it's character building. I can tell you my character was fully formed before I had this, so I had not taken that on board at all. But yes, I mean, my little boy miraculously was completely uninjured.
Wow.
And the main reason for that is that I had a great big white husky Malamute who was in the back. And when the accident happened, apparently what the firefighters have said is that he obviously leapt over the back seat to cover my wife and my little boy. And my son had this tiny little scratch, almost like Harry Potter,
Wow.
his forehead.
Wow.
But with that act, he saved both their lives.
Oh.
So I've written a couple of books, or 5 books, and it's got a theme of the white wolf. The idea behind that is actually it's paying homage to what I see as a completely selfless act of love,
Oh.
and a way of actually trying to immortalize him and say thank you, because you asked a human being to do that? No chance. And so even though it's catastrophic, there still is goodness in the event, even in that one piece of act. And that's kind of been one of my big motivators to actually cast him as my hero.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful. I mean, that's amazing. That really is amazing, and it's amazing how he did that, and how then your little boy and your wife were protected. That's amazing.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, even in the darkest corners, there is light.
Yeah, that's true. What happened then? I mean, so you had this massive brain injury, right?
Yes.
Traumatic brain injury, and then you got on a road of recovery. And what happened? What do you think really helped you in that? Because there's so many people with traumatic brain injury, right? That have so many. It doesn't always work, right? It really does. And so you've done an amazing recovery with all of this. So what do you think? What happened that worked?
Well, as you say, the the road to recovery is not a nice straight line from A to B. If that was the case, that would be wonderful. Um, there are a few sort of standout moments, because I couldn't actually believe, and that was one of the things. I didn't actually understand the nature of my injuries because it was actually completely beyond what I could, people were saying, "I got this, you got that." It didn't mean anything. And my doctor, who has been fabulous all the way through, um, she said to me, she listened to me talking about what I was going to do, and I was going to go out there next week and do it all. And she was just nodding away sagely like this. And she was like, "Well, it's going to take 2 years." And I just thought, I haven't got 2 years. I haven't got 2 years. I've got things I want to do. And so she said, "Look, listen, Paul, you're going to have to develop some self-compassion." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I thought, well, actually, that sounds a really good idea. So I went and tried to look up stuff in the best way I could. And she's absolutely right, because I really couldn't give two figs about self-compassion beforehand. It was something which other people did.
Mm.
But actually, it was the only thing I had, because it's going to sound strange, but actually it's your whole body feels disconnected. It just feels like it's not part of anything. So to be able to pull the pieces together, the first thing I had to do is actually turn the focus inward. Now, society will tell you that's a very selfish thing. They are paradigms, they are thought pattern controls. Mine got knocked clean out of me, so I've had to develop a new set. And this new set is actually, you have to develop what you have inside, because actually there's a lot of strength in there. But we're too busy doing things, meeting timelines, doing this, looking after kids. The list goes on and on and on. And you never actually.
Right? You came from that.
Yeah.
You are a successful lawyer. I mean, it tells what you did before, because you were, right?
Absolutely. And it may sound like I'm being holier than thou, and it's not meant to be. It's like, it's literally, yes, I was caught up in that, and I didn't think about it, because who does stop to think about self-compassion? It's like, oh yeah, I'll get around to reading that, or yeah, I've got this and this and this to do first, and self-compassion is not going to pay the bill at the end of the month. Agreed. But at the moment, everyone's world has changed.
Yeah.
And okay, even if this is watched afterwards, the pandemic is going to be so big that people are going to refer to it as pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So it's a trauma. And a trauma is a trauma. It doesn't have to be, and it's not a competition of who has the best, because believe me, that's not a competition you want to win. So, trauma is as real to a person as feel. And a simple definition is being, the brain is overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that can be kicked off by anything. You can lose your job, not be able to pay the rent at the end of the month, a mental, spiritual, the list goes on. Anything which is a trauma. And what I had discovered, and my psychiatrist told me this, because he tells me it straight, which is sometimes a bit brutal, but he said, "You've never failed." I said, "Well, I've failed. I've not got what I wanted. He said, No. You're not getting me. You haven't failed like this, in that it's something you can't run away from. You can't change. You can't talk your way out of it. You can't avoid it. This is here." And he said, "And you have got no toolkit to deal with this, because you've never experienced it."
Wow.
So he said, "What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to give you a new toolkit. And this toolkit will be better, because if you can get over this, there is nothing which you won't be able to then be afterwards." So it's quite weird to be told at the age of 40, 7 this year, but I prefer to say it's level 47. It sounds better. The so basically, yeah, he said I have to start again, and so that's what I did. But starting again in a world which you've lived in and a body you've lived in for 46 years, and then starting again is a little bit different. Because I had to even learn how to walk again. I mean, there were certain, mechanical things. And that I used to say, hey, I'm spiritual beforehand. I might even put it on my resume. I had no idea what actually that meant, not a clue. I kind of do now. Strange enough, I don't believe in coincidences anymore. So, yeah. But I do believe that there is a balance. And so when something bad happens or something you don't understand, there is a balance to that. And you only ever see this in hindsight. Steve Jobs came out with a brilliant thing well, not recently at all. He had this quote which said, you only see the dots when you look backwards. You never see the dots going forward. You just have to take that step. And then when you look back, you'll think, oh, yes, this is where the dots and the path was. So that's kind of what we did. And the good news about that is that actually I've got a pretty good roadmap of how to deal with most things. Because it would be nice to say, oh, that was the trauma, that was 2 years ago, and every day since then has been a growing day. It's not been like that at all. It's been back to the place of, I mean, I had a 7-hour brain operation to dig out all the bone which had exploded into my head. I had my eyes, both my eyes had to be put back basically in line so they pointed in the right direction, because for the first 2 years, I saw double.
Oh, wow.
So, there's been quite a lot. And I have noise sensitivity and acute PTSD. So every day, and I can say every day, I am scared of something, not just a little bit frightened, but terrified beyond what is normal, because I get flashbacks. And I'm not talking like in Hollywood where you go, the screen goes all like this and then you go back. It's not visual, it's emotional and sensation, because I was knocked out, which meant all my recording devices of the 5 senses been knocked out. And that's what they do in operations and hypnotherapy. So the subconscious mind, though, was still recording everything. So all this bad stuff went straight in without any filter. And the subconscious doesn't judge whether it's good or bad. It just records everything. And so when the flashbacks happen, it's actually the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And the subconscious actually then affects the body.
Right.
And so people think they live in their heads. It's not quite like that. They actually live in their heart, they live in their gut, they live, so it's not, I mean, we think with their head and think with their heart. That's just convenience. I, at the moment, and have done for a long while, and this is quite a nice piece of advice, is that I try not to live in my head. I go there to get things. I go up there and I imagine that like a set of filing cabinets, open the drawer, get out what I need, shut the drawer, and I go back down the stairs and I close the loft hatch, because there's some scary stuff up there and I don't really like going up there. It's like when you were a kid, go outside with the torch or we have to go out in the attic.
Right.
So I kind of live down in the nice bit, which is the creative and it's the, and it's the spiritual and everything else. And that really does give you a huge amount of self-armor, because actually what normally would have hit and your 5 senses and your brain would compute all these things, it hits you and it can wash straight past.
Right.
So you hear people say, take a breath to keep grounded. all it is it's trying to actually push things out. We're hit every day with sensory overload from all kinds of stimuli.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of it actually, especially now, we're actually trying to work out. I mean, you see kids out now playing outside with each other, you know, well, 6 feet away apart from
Yeah.
but, but you know, it's a lot more of a community feel. There was something recently, someone said, I don't like the word social isolation. Social isolation. Hey, I've had a bang on the head, you know. So, so it's a lot better if you just actually think of it as, well, we've got social connection, us here and everyone in Facebook world. We've got spiritual, mental. The only thing we are taking out is the small bit, which is the physical.
Yeah. Which
But
is still important.
Tiny, isn't it?
Yeah, I get that too. I'm curious. So when you went through all of that, and then you started writing, right? Why was writing so important to you? What did that do for you?
To be honest, I've always been one of those people where I wake up in the middle of the night with 100 thoughts in my head. So you write it down.
Yeah.
This here was kind of like, it was a really unnatural in some ways, because and I've since learned that the word for this is channeling. So I stumble into areas. So apologies if I sort of stumble into and you think, well, of course I know what that is. It's my first time. And so what I found is that the stories just came out without any real problem. It was literally, and so, and I kind of felt a bit guilty because I saw these comments. Oh, I got writer's block. I was thinking, I ain't got time for writer's block. It's coming out. And I went on this because they're ebooks. So I didn't know much about, because I never set out to be a writer. I had never ever desired to be an author. You know, so, and actually, even now, it's like, well, it's nice, but it's more important that actually what I've really felt I needed, if I was actually going to help people I needed to be able to give them something. It's a bit like when you go to the doctors and you say, oh, I've got this thing, and then the doctor says, okay, well, I'm going to give you these and write you a prescription. You think, well, okay, I've got something here and that's going to make me better. It's kind of a bit of a letdown when the doctor says, well, actually, you need to go home and sleep that off. You're like, oh, well, that was not really what I was hoping for. So, so actually having something tangible to say, read this.
Right.
And then if you've got questions, no problem. But have a starting point, because, you know, say, well, what's self-compassion? Well, that could fill up, you know, just go and look at any library. There's books and books and books. And the way I tried to tell it with the two wolves, anyone who's not familiar with the two wolves tale, it's a Native American tale where there's a white wolf and a black wolf.
Right.
And the grandfather says to the grandson, I'm paraphrasing here. So apologies if I'm butchering the story, but I'm just going to get the bigger bits. The grandfather says, which of the two wolves lives? And he said, well, I don't know. He says, whichever wolf you feed. So in every single person, there is a white wolf, which is the good, the positivity, the self-compassion, resilience, all those things you think if you had to list them down. And then on the other hand, you've got the negativity, you've got self-doubt, you've got self-sabotage, you've got all these other, and so every day there is a battle going on inside every single person of which wolf is in ascendancy and not. So what I did is I tried to put a story with some good helps, tips, advice, because stories you tend to remember a lot longer than just a straight shopping list.
Yeah.
And so that's how it and using, when I found out that because it was not immediate, I found out that my dog didn't make it. it was when I got moved from where I was to down near Montreal. And they said, well, who's looking after the dog? And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we need to have that conversation now. So it was still, and still is, quite raw. And actually, when you go and look in the books, on the first page, there is a live photograph of my dog, whose name was Siku. And he's running it's just how I picture him, which is just running and go.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's.
I love how you are changing something from a tragedy, right? Just like actually Brendan Burchard did. It's kind of funny that, and I think you have a similarity to that, right? He also went to an accident, and he picked out these 3 words, right? Live, love, matter. And then he made it into a worldwide movement for, I don't know, last 20 plus years he's been doing that. And I think somehow I see and hear that journey for you as well. When you look further at this journey, right, and you see ahead, what is it that you would like? What as people, we're going to put your website down too, right? As people are going to be able to read your books and see what would you like to be the kind of the future for you, as far as you can see, right? What's your intention right now? What would you like?
My intention is to continue this journey. It's not a job. It's something which I'm very happy to dedicate the rest of my time here to talking, helping, coaching, speaking, anything. If I see somebody else who is even remotely what I've been through, I've got to get hold of them. I've got to pull them up. And the one thing I did find is, even though I have a great family and a lovely network, it's still a very lonely place, because no one can do the hard yards except you. You know, they can be there, they can be your best cheerleader, but at the end of the day, you have to take the hard yards. That is why the name Take Action Academy came about, because all the knowledge in the world is of no use to fools. So basically, you've got to, and that's the idea of what I'm trying to put together, is a resources kit that somebody, regardless whatever trauma or wherever they are in their lives, they can walk into the website and they can pick off the shelf everything they need. They can tailor make a pack purely for what they're going through. And also, I'm pretty much just a regular guy. I've just been through a difficult time, but I've got no superpower other than anything else. So, you know, and when I watch people like Brendan Burchard, he's just this normal guy too. And so I think what I see is hopefully being able to meet and tell my story to more people and actually make a difference in someone else's life. And that sometimes is not saying anything, it's just listening.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's beautiful. I think what you're doing with your life is beautiful. So let's make sure people get that website right. It's a Canadian website.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Go figure that. It's yeah, a UK saying a Canadian website. You heard it here first. So it's www.takeactionacademy.ca, and yeah, have a look around. There's some free stuff. There's some paid stuff. There's some memberships. And if you want to get hold of me, I'm on LinkedIn. You kind of recognize me. I've got funny dreadlocks. You know, there's not many people, white guys with dreadlocks, but here I am.
So you're right. So Paul, we're going to end this, but although I love talking to you, you have beautiful energy and a beautiful frequency, which you've done all of this. If you would give one tip, right, as our last thing to people who are listening, one tip for them to live by, and something they can actually use today, besides going to your website and getting that stuff, but something they can, what would you say to the person who's listening to this?
The first thing, and this is going to sound as corny and as boring as ever, breathe.
Mm.
Because actually, when you do that, whatever happens, you make the decision in that second to make a positive or a negative decision. Before you make it, just breathe, center whatever you want to call it, and then decide which path. Be the person who controls the event, not the event control you. That will get you out of problems more times than not.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It's like I said, it's an amazing story. We're going to actually go and let this come out because more people need to hear this. Lots of self-compassion, right? I love it. So beautiful. And let's keep on breathing with all of it.
Absolutely.
And go to your website. We'll put it down below.
Yeah, thank you.